Hey guys, I hope you like my unwashed hair and my chin's it. So I've been getting a lot of questions about this map that I'm working on, not just from readers and followers, but from other authors too, about like what program I'm using and what it's for. So I thought I'd take you through it. Okay, so as you can see, this is the map. I took away the writing on it because I don't want to give it out yet, and I also don't know if it's solidified. But this is kind of close to a finished product. We've got little mountains that I drew by hand. Now, this is all made entirely in Photoshop. I use a stylus and a little tablet, and I got my layers, and I just go from there. Obviously, you start with the blank page, and as a reference point, I did an underlay of a flipped and twisted map of medieval Europe, North Africa, Asia, and the Indian subcontinent. And from there, when you build your landmass, you can kind of have an idea of biomes, geography, weather, where your temperature levels are going to be, and how that affects the people. By the way, is taken from one of my computer games. It's called Crusader Kings, and it's pretty intense. So over this, I drew somewhat of a landmass. It's not entirely detailed. The edges aren't that. This is a good tactic so you can get a basic idea of what your world is going to look like. I already have the story and some characters in mind. I just need somewhere for it to take place in sort of a realm that makes the story possible. And from there, I started doing basic, where the major mountain ranges would be. This is going to inform your rivers. This is going to inform borders, roads. A lot of stuff is going to come out of where you're. Again, this is all very basic and not professional, and I do not do this for a living. This is just something I do for fun and to help me get a handle on the story. So from the mountains, it's really easy to figure out your continental divides. This is going to tell you which way your rivers are going to flow. Another thing mountains do is they inform wind patterns. So that's going to tell you, this mountain range is going to block warm air from this southern sea. So this area will be colder because these mountains are here, that kind of thing. For the placement of the mountains, sometimes I get way too in-depth and I do tectonics, and that's how mountains are informed by tectonic plate movement. I did not do this for this. I sort of picked out where I wanted the mountains to be and where I thought they needed to be, for the story. Like, I knew this area is going to have a lot of mountains for a certain reason, and same over here and there. So this isn't entirely scientific. There's a lot of plot and story that I already have in my head that is informing them. Now we do our basic rivers. So we can figure out where the big rivers are. And you can draw in smaller ones later. But again, like the rest, this is the rough outline of the rivers. So, like mountains, rivers will really inform a lot of the borders in your fictional land. Now that I have some basic geo in place, I can figure out my biomes, which is essentially the different climates, what temperatures we're dealing with, what kind of geography and landscape, what kind of forest, what we can expect. For example, here we have temperate forest, some taiga, tundra, steppes, jungle, desert, jungle, grassland, all very, very basic and subject to a lot of change. And it's something that's really good for me to get a handle on more of the geopolitics of the world. So, a country that's in the desert is going to be very different from a country that's in a temperate forest, and their resources will be different, and the size of the countries will be different as well, not just in physical size, but in population. So a country, say this is a country of its own, it's much larger than something, say, that big, but they might not necessarily have as many people because it's the desert. So now that my basic geography was down, I went back in and detailed the coast. And when you detail, sometimes you add little things, a lot of fjords up here, so it's very craggy. Sometimes I would add in teeny tiny little islands. Here's what the more detailed landmass drawn map looks like. And again, I drew this with a stylus and a tablet, very, very simple. I'm starting to layer in more visual elements. So here's water, and I used some nice little Photoshop settings. I think this one's like the glow or whatever, so I could get that nice coastline. And this was a bit of a dead end I had, wherein I wanted to paint terrain and, again, different biomes. And I even did little snowy peaks on some of the mountains, and it was a real waste of my time. Let's get rid of you. You're useless. And then I did a base color with, again, some glow. I think it's called the glow. I'm going to do a parchment kind of style map, so this is going to look really nice. So now that I have my space, using those rough outlines I drew before, I am going to start adding back in the geography information. So here's mountains that I drew myself on my little stylus, and it took a good amount. Definitely took a good amount of time, more than I should have spent. Rivers, blah, 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 and some lakes that I'm coloring in. From this stage, I went into another dead end wherein I decided I could do forests. So first I colored and thought I'll just do this and we'll layer in some color. No. Then I hand drew some forests and added some color. Now this doesn't look that intense to begin with, but I was realizing as I was doing it, I was going to have to do forests here, 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 all over the place. And I was simply not going to do that. As much as I love Tolkien maps and how they have their forest drawn in, I'm not going to do it. This map is on a grander scale. It's a bit bigger and it wouldn't make sense. So I'm not going to put myself through that nonsense. Here, now that I had my rivers, mountains, biomes in my head, I was able to infer where natural borders would occur between human kingdoms. So I did a rough outline of that. I can't show it to you because it has names written in. Once I had my borders solidified to a place where I was happy, I drew them in somewhat of a mappish style. So they're sort of like that. Again, this isn't going to be professional on any level. The next three ideas, they all sort of inform each other, so you can build them together. I originally just went with cities first. See my city dots. And some of them look randomly placed and some of them are, a lot of the cities are informed by natural formations. For example, this guy, this is a pretty big river. It connects to a lot of things. Obviously there'd be a city at this delta and in this nice natural little harbor that's sort of phallic. Whereas some cities, like this guy, which would be in the middle of a desert, have story value to me, and I want them there for a reason. Followed by this is one of my favorite parts of map making, starting to connect all these places. So here's my road system. So you try and connect major cities, work along what would be naturally occurring routes that seem easy compared to geography. So, this desert road is obviously going to follow the river really closely because you're not going to stray off into the sand. Another thing about roads is they can sometimes inform city placement. So there's going to be a city there. There's going to be a city there because it's a crossroads, and cities prop up along crossroads. And as you notice, the bigger cities have lots of crossroads around them. Similar to roads would be our sea lanes or shipping lanes. I really like doing this because I figure out where a lot of sea traffic is going to be, which means there's going to be a lot of money in those areas. So this area is a lot busier than the neighbors up here, largely because of these people who live here. But I can't tell you about that much. One of my favorite countries is this island situation. This is very, very basic. It looks basic, but it works for me. Something to make it look a little more professional is I did a parchment layer. Super easy, and it looks a lot more real, at least to me. And part of this is almost like role-playing. This is helping me get into character and get into the story because I can imagine characters holding this map and reading from it or using it or adding to it. So that's where I am with the map a bit. Now I'm starting to fill in the names. I have all the countries down and I'm figuring out the names of rivers, mountains, areas, cities, and trying to fit that into the culture of each specific kingdom. I'm using my handy dandy Scrivener research tabs and basically just doing tables with each country and what is in each country. And when I'm happy with the way things are looking, I think everything sort of fits together, then I'll put them on the map. Hopefully that was informative. I know it's long, and I'm sorry. But yeah, that's what I've been working on for now. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything behind me that you guys can't see anymore. It's all gone, it's all taken down. One thing I want to make clear, this is what works for me. I have learned this method through lots of trial and error and lots of cannibalizing methods from way more talented cartographers. I use some Reddit resources, which I will put right here. And I think that's pretty much it for me for now. This was probably my longest Instagram story of all time. My stomach is literally rumbling, and I'm gonna go have lunch. Goodbye.